Good evening. I'm happy to be with you and flattered to say a few words about the Campaign for Equity of Associated Black Charities. The proliferation of equity experts, trainers, and advocates over the last year has never been greater. The interest in organizational training in the diversity, equity, and inclusion space is equally prolific. It's important to understand what ABC brings to the table and how they approach this work. First of all, let's be clear that this campaign is not new. ABC has been engaged in this work for over 35 years. As a leader, activist, and advocate, President and CEO Diane Bell McCoy has been its most ardent and inexhaustible voice for decades. The ABC Campaign for Equity teaches us to quickly understand the patience that's needed to pursue the depth of this work. It instills in us the fact that this journey is not a linear one, and in fact, it is full of twists and turns and spills and stumbles. But we've been here before, when learning to walk or to find our way out of adulthood as we emerge from our teenage years. And for those of us who are white, particularly white men, and specifically white male leaders who represent 80 to 90% of top leadership in every sector of our society, ABC helps us to understand that we need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. For surely we will misspeak, and for sure we will misstep. As leaders from this campaign for equity, we learned that it is not enough to appoint someone to lead DEI in our organizations or to provide annual equity training for our colleagues. No, we must lead this effort. ABC's approach is one that moves us all to awareness. This occurs through understanding history. It is a bumpy path that is full of challenging conversations and difficult decisions about lifelong assumptions that we have made about the untold history in our country. The Campaign for Equity drives home the importance of comprehending how prevalent system racism is in our businesses, culture, communities, and psyches. In fact, like Ibram X. Kendi, ABC teaches us the term systematic racism is redundant because the word racism itself is institutional, is structural, and is systemic. ABC's approach is to stress the importance of why a clear language is an important vital step in eliminating racism. This campaign for equity is not new. We should ask ourselves why we have gone from hearing ABC's words over decades to finally, yet suddenly, listening to the true meaning behind those words. It is an awareness that needs to build in reflection. I learned from Diane over a dozen years ago that standing in solidarity is not enough. Standing up to racial equity is essential. We must understand the systemic racism and prevalence of racism in our country. We must raise our awareness, yes. We must raise our consciousness with equal fervor. But more importantly, we must take up ABC's mantle and be called to action. No action is apathy and suggest that we are walking away from this challenge. We must, in fact, run into this challenge with great speed. It needs to be a deliberate call to action to eliminate racism in every segment of our neighborhoods, every sector of industry, and every sphere of our society. This should be our mantra. Each of us, as advocates and supporters, need to make it an intentional imperative to invest in our neighborhoods, our businesses, and ourselves. ABC's Campaign for Equity needs to be our campaign as organizations, companies, and communities. But most importantly, need to make it our equity campaign as human beings. Thank you and good night.